right, first slide, fantastic. So we want to talk a little bit about business models. And as I was thinking about this presentation last week, I came across an interesting press article. It said 220 million connected cars on the road by the end of the decade. And for those of us, I think most of us in this room, livelihoods rely on these kinds of statistics coming true. It's a great thing. Wonderful line, lots and lots of cars, a lot of them being connected. So I kept reading. It's like, what? Only 40% would actually use the connected services inside the vehicle? That's insane. Absolutely insane. We are in a connected world. Everything we do practically nowadays is connected. Why is it that 5 years from now, we only think that 4 out of 10 people will use some kind of connected service inside the vehicle? And I kept thinking, it's like, man, this makes no sense. And as I started to think about it a little bit deeper, it actually does, because the people who come up with the statistic are looking backwards. They're not looking forward at the next generation of services. And they saw the history of the initial connected vehicle programs, started, of course, many years ago, safety and security convenience programs, typically executed in a single country, the US, Germany, maybe you got to the UK, maybe you got to France. We now are sort of in this sort of second generation, getting a little bit more sophisticated. We continue to have those same safety and security programs, but now we're bringing in diagnostics, or as Doug just mentioned, over-the-air updates. Each OEM has their own set of applications to control things inside the vehicle. Wi-Fi hotspot inside the car, popular now amongst GM drivers, Audi drivers. You get to have a few third-party apps, Pandora, et cetera. Still, most of these programs are single country. Perhaps a little bit of regional, US and Canada, Germany and France and Italy. But it's still a long ways away from being a truly global, multifaceted program. And I think that's really what we're starting to see happening now, starting to be put into place that will come to production over the next few years, is this next generation of services and programs. We're going to have many third-party applications. We already have a lot of app developer programs that the OEMs are launching and running. We'll see third parties coming in and accessing information inside the vehicle, and we'll see these programs go global. So as we think about this next generation of services, we really see 4 attributes really coming into focus. First is it's not just about subscriptions anymore. The business models have to account for subscriptions and transactions. These offers have to be highly personalized, highly dynamic to the various demographics that the drivers are. The vehicle is an incredibly important data source, and it's really a hub of data that can be used across the entire ecosystem. And the final attribute is that these programs are just going to be inherently global right from the get-go. And the thinking has to be global, the planning and the production of them have to be global. So let me kind of share with you some thoughts on each of those. $30 billion is how much the iTunes Store generated in gross sales last year. $30 billion, which is an absolutely stunning number. Now, how many subscription models are on the iTunes Store? I can't think of one. I can buy a music file, I can buy a movie file, I can buy an app that's included in the iTunes Store. It's all transaction-based. The average sale price is 99 cents or less. So what we see, the behavior of the consumer, either reflected in iTunes or because of iTunes, is that consumers want to buy what they want, when they want it, and they want it instantly delivered. The profile of the buying cycle of a consumer is very different than a subscription-based model for many of them. Subscriptions in and of themselves are not bad, but you have to cater to the other types of ways that consumers want to buy. So those models have to be transactional in nature. You need to be able to support them, because different buying patterns, ways of how people want to consume information, ways that they want to consume content, consume services. And the most successful programs have to be able to support all those different kinds of models, because the buying patterns of consumers have clearly changed. So the idea of a yearly subscription commitment is not going to be for many people. So you can't simply ignore the rest of the consumers that are out there. the same time creating highly personalized, highly dynamic offers so not everything has to be baked in and thought about right from the very, very get-go. I work in the Bay Area, and prior to coming out here, I was sitting in my office and took a snapshot of my Uber app. I don't know if you all use Uber. I love Uber. I use Uber everywhere I go. It's an absolutely fantastic service. And so this is our office here in Bunker Hill Lane in Santa Clara. And I then went up to the airport, got on a plane, flew out to Detroit. I landed, took my phone out of airplane mode. I'm going to get an Uber car to take me from the airport to the hotel. And you can see instantly it says, "Welcome to Detroit," as it starts to actually load up the app. And even more interesting is after I got past that splash screen, you can see, it's a little hard to tell, but on the bottom, there are actually 4 options. Whereas when I was in Santa Clara, there's 3 options: UberX, Black Car. In Detroit, there's a service called Select. I don't really know what it is. I tend to use Black Car. But the app did not update. I did not get it. I didn't go to the App Store. Nothing was done over there while I was in flight. All the Uber app is just an absolute framework. And then everything is driven off the server. And so it gets presented, and so it's constantly changing. And Uber actually does all kinds of giveaways and additional services that can last for a few hours, and that's how they do it. Now, certainly, 3-4 years ago, you couldn't run services off the cloud. The networks just weren't quite there. The technology wasn't quite there. That's rapidly changing. And we flash forward 3, 4, 5 years from now, it's absolutely going to be the norm. The networks can absolutely handle it. The coverage is there. And for non-essential items, you can actually start to take advantage of this incredibly dynamic environment to be able to present personalized offers based on all kinds of hosts of demographics that you know about that particular consumer. At the same time, even setting aside consumers, the vehicle, as we all know, is an incredibly rich data hub. It has so much information. And monetization models and business models of the connected vehicle aren't just limited to what do we get the consumer to buy. It's how else can we monetize that particular connection. And of course, as we think about it, there's the entire ecosystem that wants to have access into this kind of information. Insurance companies have already started to do that. You see insurance companies with their usage-based insurance programs. And when they go off and they send the dongle to plug into the OBD2 port, between 20 and 30% of the time, that envelope just sits on the kitchen counter. The customer doesn't actually plug it in. What an incredible waste. Why not, with simple permissions, of course, and an opt-in, simply say, I know what car you drive. I'll work with the manufacturer to get the information that we need. Same for dealers to be able to access that information. Parts suppliers, tier 1 suppliers who want to know how their products are actually performing. We see this in other markets. We spend a lot of time in many markets within the kind of Internet of Things domain. And almost every manufacturing plant has all kinds of equipment coming in from third parties. Well, those third parties are actually monitoring those robots, other kinds of equipment on the factory floor to be able to do remote diagnostics and whatnot. And it's the same concepts that can be applied inside the vehicle. And then the OEM actually becomes the center point to be able to monetize all of that data information. There's obviously some hair on that. There's obviously privacy concerns that have to be worked through. But it's not a technology problem that can now start to actually be building all kinds of business models to be able to monetize the vehicle as a data hub. At the same time, we're now entering a realm where the next generation of services, you can actually have one hardware, one module device or module radio, one set of content and services, one SIM card, and then it can actually take on the identity of its local market. We see this with the EU ICC standard to be able to take the operator profile on the SIM itself. But why not, whenever a vehicle is turned on, it's recognized by a US carrier, is established as in fact in the US, simply push down the identity of all the US content, all the US services. When it lands in China, to be able to do the exact same thing, it can be a completely automated program on the simple act of actually connecting on the network. So we see that we're entering this realm where you can actually start to deliver global programs in a cost-effective manner and simply change them to the local identity on an as-needed basis. So that singular connection is actually being split into all different kinds of offers and services. And we see this not just in 3 splitting the data into 3 different lines, 4 different lines, it could literally be endless. And it's now being increasingly managed at the network layer. Where we sit at Jasper, we actually host a lot of the billing and rating systems between the mobile operators and the OEMs or the TSPs managing those programs. And we took a look at the mobile operator rate plans that some of the OEMs use. I just picked the top 6 OEM programs, ones that have been in market for quite some time. The average OEM has 177 mobile operator rate plans. Stunning. Absolutely stunning. Now, are they all in use at the exact same time? No. But it certainly represents that there's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of learning still going on. There's a lot of experimentation happening as people try different business models, learn different things, understand the various behaviors of the consumers of their own use, and then find the right kinds of business models that make sense for them on the cost side. So now we have all this data and these data streams and these connections being split up. Now we have all different kinds of business models, different kinds of payer relationships in terms of who the consumer's paying, who the OEM's paying, who the third parties are paying, and how they actually get paid. This complexity is increasing quite dramatically. So you have to have the right kinds of systems and processes and platforms in place to be able to manage to that. We see that at the highest order, between the enterprise backend and the vehicles, there's of course the mobile networks themselves, but also a software layer to be able to manage the entire service lifecycle, to be able to manage the deployment, the onboarding across all those various operators and systems and networks, to be able to do the ongoing management when things happen or go wrong, to be able to figure out exactly why that is, and then put in place the right kind of monetization programs. So we see the need and the ongoing value for an IoT services platform that can support all these different kinds of business models. And in fact, that's what we do today. We're very privileged to be able to do this in concert and in partnership with 25 mobile operator groups, collectively representing over 100 unique carriers around the world. And we bring this to life for today. We have 13 OEM programs that we're supporting on the platform itself, plus the much broader ecosystem. So we're really excited about what we see in terms of the next generation of business models that are inherently global, that look at monetization of the data inside the vehicle within the ecosystem, that can be able to present dynamic offers and different transactional models to the consumers themselves. And my hope is that with all of this in play, that initial statistic of 60% of consumers won't use their connected services inside the vehicle is just flat out wrong. It's just flat out wrong. And I actually do believe that to be true because we're starting to see this moving forward. So thank you very much.